1975 was a very traumatic time in our development. We lost 11 comrades murdered and many more. Upwards of 30 people shot and wounded. Many people were driven from their homes and intimidated out of their workplaces. We remember them all here today. Those who give their lives 50 years ago. John Fox, murdered on the 25th of February. Paul D.D. Crawford, murdered on the 12th of April. Liam McMillan, murdered on the 28th of April. Robbie Alleyman, murdered on the 29th of October. The following day, on the 30th, 6-year-old Aileen Kelly. 31st of October, Tom Barry. Jimmy Fogarty, then murdered on the 3rd of November. John Mario Kelly, shot dead on the 9th of November. Jackie McAllister on the 11th of November. Campbell Casey on the 11th of November. And John Brown on the 11th of November. We remember them all here today. I'd like to call on the fallen people to lay wreaths in their memory. On behalf of the CUC, Paddy Hummel, on behalf of North Belfast, Austin Kelly Jr. A wreath has just been laid on behalf of North Belfast by Frankie Labrador, on behalf of Frankie. South Belfast, Michael Hart. On behalf of West Belfast, Damien Wisdom. A wreath will also be laid by Jim and Janine Fogarty on behalf of their mother and father. A wreath will also be laid by Debbie Barry on behalf of her father, Tom. We also have a wreath from the family of the late John Hamill. And a wreath on behalf of the late Cunningham family, the late Gary Cunningham. Can I ask people with any other wreaths or floral tributes to please lay them? Thank you.
This is for all my friends and comrades who were murdered by fascists. And it's great to see my childhood friend, his family here, the Fogartys, and Jimmy and I grew up together and never forget him. Comrades and friends, today we mark a dramatic and tragic year in our history as we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 1975 attacks against our party, its members, supporters and their families. 1975 was a time when our very political existence came under attack. In addition to the threats from a repressive state and its various agents, the Republican Club's official Republican movement, as a precursor to the present-day Workers' Party, faced first dangerous and misguided elements who rejected the political analysis, direction and vision laid out by the leadership of our party with the determined support of the membership. And secondly, those external forces, the right-wing Provisional Alliance, the cooperation of the state, which launched a murderous assault, a vicious pogrom to eliminate this party. In 1975, this organisation was actively engaged in the process of transforming itself into a revolutionary party of and for the working class. As a necessary step, creating a democratic, secular, socialist, unitary state on the island of Ireland, a republic. This prospect posed a threat to both states on this island, to reactionary forces opposed to change, and to those wedded to the nationalist nostalgia of yesteryear and a narrow sectarian vision incapable of understanding, let alone leading a united working class towards their own liberation. These forces, right and ultra-left, fail to understand the true nature of imperialism as the highest stage of capitalism. They willfully dismiss the dangers of sectarianism and the threat to class unity. But advanced thinking comes at a price, and that price was paid in full by our members and supporters in 1975. The years 1974 to 75 promised new possibilities for peace and progress in the world. On the 6th of January 1975, North Vietnamese forces captured Phu Long province in South Vietnam, marking a significant victory in the Vietnam War, and formed part of a larger offensive that ultimately led to the fall of Saigon later that year, the end of the war, and the reunification of Vietnam under a socialist government. The Soviet Union had a number of successes in the space program that year. For example, the Salyut 4 space station in January 1975. The move towards independence by former colonial countries continued. In January 1975, Portugal officially announced its intention to grant independence to Angola. In 1975, the Comoros Islands declared independence from France. São Tomé and Príncipe officially gained independence from Portugal after a prolonged struggle for liberation. That year, Ethiopia officially ended its monarchy. Venezuela signed an agreement to nationalise the soil industry. In Laos, the Pathet Lao, backed by North Vietnam, captured the capital, leading to the abdication of the king and the establishment of the Lao People's Democratic Republic. In April, sadly the Lebanese Civil War began, marking a state of a devastating conflict that was characterised by sectarian violence and foreign interventions, leading to significant loss of life and displacement. In 1975, the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 3379, which equated Zionism with racism. Sadly, it was revoked in 1991. In October 1975, it's been celebrated this weekend, women in Iceland organised a nationwide strike to protest gender inequality and demand equal rights. In December 75, Spain withdrew from Spanish Sahara, leading to a conflict involving Morocco and the Sahrawi people, which continues today. What, you may ask, has any of this to do with us in 1975? In In 1975, our party had recognised the necessity of building links with progressive and liberation forces throughout the world. We recognised that our struggle had to be a struggle for socialism. We had visitors from revolutionary struggles across the globe. We visited them. We shared a common struggle. We saw beyond the narrow confines of national borders as we do today. In Lebanon, during protests against sectarianism, our sectarianism against workers' movement was held aloft in view. This vision separated us, and still separates us, from the restrictive, progressive ideals of those who lack any plan for a better socialist future. Put our comrades at Ireland. In 1972, in the Boats Town speech, our movement set itself the task of carrying out political, economic, social and cultural struggle to build class conditions and links. January 1975, the United Irishman set out the policies for which we stood, stating that the Republican movement stands for the men and women of no property. It fights for no religion, but against all exploitation and foreign control. It believes that all of Ireland should be controlled by the Irish working class. It rejects the idea that there can be real freedom in any part of our country, as long as there are any who live in want, who are unemployed, who fear discrimination, or who are crushed and degraded by their work. In its editorial that month, on Wednesday, the 12th of February 1975, a number of incident centres were established in non-unionist areas. These were staffed by members of the provisionals who liaised with government officials at the Northern Ireland office. It was no coincidence that the British Army made no effort to constrain the campaign of murder and intimidation across the city which followed. The actions of the ultra-leftists in 1975, which openly allied themselves with the reactionary sectarianism of the provisionals, led inevitably to conflict. The murder of Sean Fox on the 25th of February was followed by a campaign of violence against members and supporters of the Republican clubs. There was an attempt to murder Sean Garland in Dublin on the 1st of March. Paul Crawford was shot dead on the Falls Road on the 12th of April, and Liam McMillan was shot and killed on the 28th of April. Despite these vicious attacks, the political work continued. Across the country, members continued agitation on jobs, feminism, international issues, policing, housing and other social issues and civil rights. Members actively participated in the referendum on whether the UK remain in the common market, later to become the European Union, arguing that the EEC was a rich man's club. Over 5,000 people attended the Pogrom Commemoration that year, where the oration was delivered by Cathal Goulding and the event chaired by Frank McLean. Goulding used his oration to condemn those nationalist and ultra-leftist forces which he stated shamed the name of Republican and Socialist. He referred to the murders of Paul Crawford, Sean Fox and Liam McMillan. On Wednesday, the 29th of October 1975, the Provisionals murdered Robert Ellen in the Markets area of Belfast. That same day, Tommy Flanagan was abducted, called a rotten bastard of a socialist, and was lucky to escape with his life, while state forces allowed his kidnappers to go about their business unhindered. 20 others were wounded, 3 critically injured. This was a coordinated attack, a campaign of mass murder. On Thursday night, 6-year-old Eileen Kelly was shot dead in her home in Beachmont. Malachy McGurn, chairman of the 6th County Executive of Republican Clubs, escaped 2 attempts on his life. Shots were fired into the home of Republican Clubs councillor Bernard McDonough. Friday the 31st of October, Tom Berry was shot dead by the Provisionals outside a GAA club in the Short Strand. Jim Fogarty, who had been a Republican Clubs member, was shot dead at his home in Ballymurphy, Belfast by the Provisionals on Monday the 3rd of November 1975. Bars were machine gunned and families forced from their homes. All this was taking place as Republican Clubs members were distributing anti-sectarianism leaflets across the city. On Sunday the 9th of November 1975, the attacks continued. John Kelly was shot dead by the Provisionals at the New Lodge area of Belfast. On Monday, the vicious campaign continued. Homes were dug with paint and women and children intimidated. On Tuesday, the 11th of November, there were 3 more murders by the Provisional elements. Jackie McAllister, whose mother Ethel had the courage to confront those who attempted to justify the work of the murderers, was killed while he waited for a bus to work. Congal Casey was made to kneel and then shot in the head in front of his workmates. John Brown, a Republican Clubs member, was shot dead on his doorstep. When the bloodletting was over, Mervyn Rees, then Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, announced that the incident centres were to be closed. From the outset of the pogrom, the Republican clubs appealed to public opinion and the political parties for solidarity in the face of a murderous onslaught. This was met with shameful silence. The Republican clubs acknowledged the good work of reporters and journalists who did attempt to publish the reality of what was happening. Despite the murderous attempt to liquidate the Republican clubs in 1975, our party prevailed. Unshaken and undaunted, our members continued to fight to build a better future, participating in the ICTU Trade Union Better Life for All campaign, the USI NUS UK Student Campaign for Peace, Jobs, Progress, worked to eliminate sectarian, racist and sexist division amongst workers, and the elaboration of our demands for political, social, economic and cultural rights, which can only be realised in a socialist system. Our members continued to build the party. We still live in a deeply unequal and divided society, experiencing the ravages of the capitalist class with continual attacks on the rights and achievements of workers, environmental degradation and the reckless over-exploitation of our planet's natural resources. Our party, the Workers' Party, of which we remain proud, is recognised as a Marxist-Leninist party committed to the revolutionary transformation of society, the abolition of capitalism, and the building of a democratic, secular, socialist republic in which power is firmly in the hands of those who produce that society's wealth, the working class. We owe our immense gratitude to those members, supporters and their families which stood with our party in 1975 and have made many sacrifices before and since. Our work is ongoing. We have never ceased. We will not depart in struggle. We have a world to live.